I gave my brother my organs before I turned 18. Last week, his girlfriend asked one question that made him lose everything. When I was 14, my brother mixed vodka with a handful of Tylenol because someone at a party told him it would get him drunker faster. The combination destroyed his liver in less than 48 hours. His skin turned yellow first, then his eyes. He started vomiting blood in the bathroom and couldn't stop shaking, and my parents rushed to the hospital. I remember sitting in the waiting room when my mom pulled me into the hallway and grabbed my hands. "Angelica, your brother needs part of your liver," she said. "You're the only match." My whole body went cold. "You want to cut me open?" "Livers grow back," she said quickly. "It's one surgery, that's it. You'd be saving his life." "I don't want to have surgery," I said. "I'm scared." Mom's grip tightened on my hands. "Your brother is dying, Angelica. Do you understand that? He's dying and you can save him. But I don't want them to cut into me. What if something goes wrong? What if I die?" "You won't die. The doctors said it's safe. They also said Jordan might not survive." "How is any of this safe?" Mom's face hardened. "Your brother is lying in that room fighting for his life because of a stupid mistake. One stupid mistake. And you're standing here worried about yourself?" I started crying. I couldn't help it. I was 14 years old and my mom was looking at me like I was a monster for not wanting someone to slice me open. "I'm not worried about myself," I said. "I'm just scared." "Then be scared and do it anyway," Mom said. "That's what family does." Dad walked over from Jordan's room. He took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. "Hey, Angel," he said softly. "I know this is scary, but Jordan's running out of time. The transplant list is too long. He needs you." "Why can't you do it?" I asked. "Or Mom? We already got tested. We're not matches. It has to be you." I should have known. I should have known the second they pulled me into this hallway that I didn't really have a choice. This was how it always worked in my family. Jordan needed something, and I was expected to provide it. When Jordan wanted my birthday party moved so it wouldn't conflict with his soccer tournament, we moved it. When Jordan got caught cheating on a test and needed someone to say they gave him the answers, my parents looked at me. I always came second. That was just how it was. "What about swimming?" I asked quietly. "I have state championships next month. Coach said scouts might be there. College scouts. She said if I swim like I did at regionals, I could get recruited early. She said I have real talent, and this is my chance to prove it." Mom made a sound in her throat. "Swimming? Your brother might die and you're worried about swimming?" "Rena," Dad said. He looked at me with tired eyes. "The doctor said you'd need about 6 weeks to recover. You might miss this year's championships, but there's always next year. One surgery and this is all over. Your brother gets better. You heal up. Everything goes back to normal. We'll never ask you to do anything like this again." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe this was a one-time thing, that I could save my brother and go back to my normal life and never think about this again. "You promise?" I asked. "Just this once?" Dad pulled me into a hug. "I promise, sweetheart. It only has to happen once." Mom stepped closer and put her hand on my back. Her voice softened for the first time since this conversation started. "You're our angel, Angelica. You were sent to us to save this family. That's why we named you what we did." I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't feel like an angel. I just felt scared. But Jordan was dying. My big brother who taught me to swim in our backyard pool when I was 5. Who carried me on his shoulders at concerts so I could see the stage. Who told me I was going to be an Olympic swimmer someday, and he'd be in the front row cheering louder than anyone. He wasn't perfect. He got more than me, and he knew it, and sometimes he rubbed it in. But he was still my brother. I couldn't let him die. Not when I had the power to save him. "Okay," I said. The word came out small and shaky. "I'll do it." Mom's whole body relaxed. Dad squeezed me tighter. "Thank you, Angel," he whispered into my hair. "Thank you so much. You're saving our family." The next few hours were a blur of doctors and consent forms and nurses explaining things I didn't understand. They kept talking about percentages and recovery times and possible complications, but all I could focus on was the fear pounding in my chest. Before they wheeled me into surgery, my dad held my hand and said, "We love you so much, Angelica. We'll be right here when you wake up. You and Jordan are both going to be fine." Mom kissed my forehead. "You're so brave," she said. "Your brother is so lucky to have you." I wanted to say something back, but the anesthesia was already pulling me under. The last thing I remember thinking was that this was the hardest thing I'd ever do. That nothing in my life would ever be this scary again. I was wrong. This was just the beginning. Title: My brother called me his spare parts. I satisficed him twice before I satisficed the entire family. Voice: woman. Text: recovery was supposed to take 6 weeks. It took 8. The incision got infected during week 3 and I spent 4 extra days in the hospital hooked up to IV antibiotics. while my parents split their time between my room and Jordan's. Except they didn't really split it. They'd pop in to check on me for maybe 10 minutes, ask how I was feeling, tell me I was being so brave, and then disappear back to Jordan's side for hours. I'd hear them laughing down the hall. I'd hear Jordan's friends coming to visit with balloons and cards and stuffed animals. My swim team sent me one card. Coach signed it, "Get well soon, see you at the pool." That was it. The state championships happened while I was still in my hospital bed. I watched them on my phone with the volume turned low so I wouldn't bother anyone. My teammate Becca won the 200 freestyle, the event I'd been training for all year. The event coach said I had the best shot at. I watched Becca stand on that podium with her gold medal, and I watched the scouts in the stands taking notes, and I knew. I'd just lost something I was never getting back. Becca's face was all over the local sports news the next day. Rising star catches attention of college scouts. That was supposed to be me. That was supposed to be my headline. But instead, I was lying in a hospital bed with staples in my stomach because my brother decided to play chemistry experiment with alcohol and painkillers. When I finally got discharged, Coach came to visit me at home. She sat on the edge of my bed and told me not to worry. "You'll come back stronger," she said. "Athletes recover from setbacks all the time. Next year's championships will be your year." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But when I finally got cleared to swim again 3 months later, something was wrong. My times were slower. Not by a lot. Just a few seconds here and there. But in competitive swimming, a few seconds is everything. Coach had me doing extra drills, extra conditioning, extra everything. Nothing worked. My body just didn't move the same way anymore. The scar tissue pulled when I rotated. My core strength was gone. I'd get winded halfway through sets that used to be easy. By the time the next season started, I wasn't the star of the team anymore. I wasn't even in the top 3. The scouts who'd been watching me before had moved on to other swimmers. Coach stopped talking about college recruitment. She stopped talking about the Olympics. She just patted my shoulder and said, "You're doing great, Angelica. Keep working hard." But I could see it in her eyes. She didn't believe in me anymore. Nobody did. Meanwhile, Jordan was thriving. His recovery was textbook perfect. Within 4 months, he was back to his normal life like nothing had ever happened. Back to his friends, back to his parties, back to everything. I found out he was drinking again 6 months after the surgery. I was doing homework in my room when I heard him stumble up the stairs at 2 a.m. I opened my door, and there he was, leaning against the wall, reeking of beer. "What are you doing?" I asked him. He laughed. "Relax, little sis. I'm fine. You almost died because of drinking. The doctor said you can't do this anymore. Your liver can't handle it." He rolled his eyes at me. Actually rolled his eyes, like I was being dramatic. "The doctor said I need to be careful. I'm being careful. A few beers isn't going to kill me. Jordan, I gave you part of my liver. Do you understand that? I let them cut me open so you could live, and you're just going to destroy it again?" He pushed himself off the wall and looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. This casual cruelty that made me take a step back. "So what if I do?" he said. "Livers regenerate. That's what they told you, right? That's the whole point. What's that supposed to mean?" He smiled. Not a nice smile. A smile that said he knew something I didn't. "It means if I mess up again, Mom and Dad will just make you fix it. That's literally your job, Angelica. You're the spare parts. You're the backup plan. That's why they had you." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. That's not true. Sure it is. Why do you think they named you Angel? You're supposed to save me. That's your whole purpose. So stop worrying about what I do with my body because we both know you'll be there to fix it when I need you. He pushed past me into his room and slammed the door. I stood in the hallway for a long time trying to convince myself he was just drunk. Just being mean because he was wasted. He didn't really believe what he said. He couldn't. The next morning, I told my parents what happened. I told them Jordan was drinking again. I told them what he said about me being the backup plan. Mom sighed like I was exhausting her. "Angelica, your brother has been through a lot. He's allowed to blow off some steam." "He's not blowing off steam. He's destroying the liver I gave him." Dad put his hand on my shoulder. "Jordan knows his limits. He's not going to do anything stupid. And you need to stop being so dramatic about this. The doctor said he could have an occasional drink as long as he's careful. He wasn't careful. He was wasted. One night doesn't mean anything. Let it go." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What about what he said? About me being the spare parts? Mom's expression hardened. He was drunk. He didn't mean it. And honestly, Angelica, this victim mentality isn't attractive. You did a wonderful thing for your brother. Be proud of that instead of holding it over everyone's heads. I opened my mouth to argue, but the look on her face stopped me. It was the same look she'd given me in the hospital hallway. The look that said I was being selfish for having feelings. The look that said my only job was to sacrifice and smile. I went to my room and didn't come out for the rest of the day. A few weeks later, my parents sat me down for a family discussion. I thought maybe they were finally going to address Jordan's drinking. Maybe they'd heard me after all. Instead, Dad cleared his throat and said, "We need to talk about your college fund." My college fund. The one my grandparents had started when I was born. The one they'd been adding to every birthday and Christmas for 14 years. The one that was supposed to pay for my future. "What about it?" I asked. Dad and Mom exchanged a look. "Jordan's medical bills were significant," Mom said. "The insurance didn't cover everything. We had to make some difficult decisions." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What kind of decisions?" "We used your college fund to cover the remaining costs." The room tilted. "You took my college money? For his bills?" "It was necessary," Dad said. "Jordan needed specialized care. The alternative was letting him suffer." "But that was my money. Grandma and Grandpa gave that to me." "They gave it to us to hold for you," Mom corrected. "And we made a judgment call. When you're older, you'll understand that sometimes parents have to make hard choices." "What about Jordan's college fund?" I asked. "Did you use that too?" Silence. Mom looked at the floor. Dad looked at the wall. Neither of them looked at me. "Jordan's fund is for Jordan," Mom finally said. "He's going to need it when he applies to schools. You know how competitive it is out there. So he gets to keep his money, but I have to lose mine? Because of bills from his mistake?" "It wasn't a mistake," Dad said sharply. "It was an accident. And we're not going to punish Jordan for something he didn't mean to do." "But you'll punish me for it? I'm the one who gave him my liver and I'm the one who loses everything?" Mom stood up. "This conversation is over. The decision has been made. If you want to go to college, you'll do what everyone else does and apply for scholarships. You're a smart girl. You'll figure it out." She walked out of the room. Dad followed her. I sat on the couch alone, trying to understand what had just happened. My swimming career was gone. My college fund was gone. My brother was back to drinking like nothing had changed. And my parents thought I was being dramatic for being upset about any of it. I was 15 years old, and I was already learning the most important lesson of my life. In this family, I didn't exist as a person. I existed as a resource. And resources don't get to have feelings. Jordan told me to my face that my body is his backup plan. He's not scared. He's not grateful. He's already treating the liver I gave him like it's disposable because he knows there's more where that came from. My parents won't stop him. They'll just come back to me with the same speech about family and sacrifice and being their angel. The only question is how long until his liver fails again. Based on how much he's drinking, I'd give it a few years. And when it does, I already know whose door they'll knock on first. 3 years passed. I turned 17. Jordan turned 20. In those 3 years, I watched my brother systematically destroy everything I'd given him. He didn't just drink occasionally like my parents claimed. He drank constantly. Parties every weekend. Beer in the fridge that he barely tried to hide. Bottles of vodka in his room that my parents pretended not to see. Twice I found him passed out on the bathroom floor. Both times my parents blamed stress. "He's in college now," Mom said. "Everyone drinks in college. He's just being a normal young adult." Normal young adults didn't almost die from liver failure at 17. Normal young adults didn't have their sister's organs inside them. But I'd stopped trying to argue. Every time I brought up Jordan's drinking, my parents looked at me like I was jealous. Like I was trying to sabotage my brother instead of save him. So I focused on my own life. I joined every club I could find. Student council, debate team, academic decathlon. If I couldn't get recruited for swimming, I'd make myself impressive some other way. I applied for scholarships obsessively. Need-based, merit-based, essay contests, anything. I worked a part-time job at a coffee shop to save money for college applications. I was determined to build a future for myself, even if my family had already decided I didn't deserve one. And then my parents showed up at my school. It was a Tuesday afternoon. I was in the library working on a scholarship application when the vice principal came to get me. "Your parents are in the office," she said. "They say it's a family emergency." I knew. Before she even finished the sentence, I knew. I walked to the front office on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. Mom was sitting in one of the plastic chairs with her face in her hands. Dad was pacing by the window. They both looked up when I walked in. "It's Jordan," Dad said. "His liver is failing again." I stood in the doorway and waited to feel something. Surprise, sadness, fear. But all I felt was tired. I was so tired. "The doctor said the damage is extensive," Mom continued. Her voice was shaking. "Apparently he's been drinking more than we realized. Much more. His liver can't keep up anymore." "I told you," I said quietly. "For 3 years I told you he was drinking too much and you said I was being dramatic." "This isn't the time for I told you so," Dad snapped. "Your brother is in the hospital. He might die. He might die because you let him drink himself to death after I gave him part of my liver." Mom stood up. Her eyes were red, but her jaw was set. "We need you to do it again." "No." The word came out before I could stop it. Clear and firm and final. Both my parents stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. "No?" Mom repeated. "Angelica, your brother is dying." "I know, and I'm sorry, but I can't do this again." Dad stepped toward me. "Can't or won't?" "Both. You promised me it would only happen once. You looked me in the eyes and promised." "Circumstances changed," Dad said. "Sometimes promises have to be broken when lives are at stake. His life is at stake because of choices he made. Because you let him make those choices. Because every time I tried to warn you, you told me to shut up and stop being jealous." Mom's face twisted. "So you're going to let your brother die to prove a point?" "I'm not letting him die. I'm just not killing myself to save him again." "Killing yourself?" Dad laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Don't be dramatic. You survived the first surgery just fine." "I didn't survive fine. I was in the hospital for 8 weeks. I got an infection. I lost my swimming career. I lost my college fund. I lost 3 years of my life recovering from what you asked me to do." "And your brother would have lost his actual life if you hadn't done it?" Mom shot back. "That's the trade. That's what family means." I looked at my mother. At the woman who was supposed to love me unconditionally. At the woman who was looking at me like I was a monster for not wanting to be cut open again. I said no. Mom stepped closer until she was right in my face. "If Jordan dies because you refuse to help, you will never be welcome in this family again. Do you understand me? You will be dead to us." "Rena," Dad said quietly, "that's enough." "It's not enough until she agrees. Until she stops acting like a selfish little brat and does what needs to be done." I should have walked out. I should have gone back to my scholarship application and let them figure out their own problems. But then Jordan himself showed up. He pushed through the office door looking gray and gaunt, and nothing like the healthy brother who'd mocked me in the hallway 3 years ago. Someone must have told him where we were. Someone must have helped him get here because he could barely stand on his own. "Angelica," he said. His voice cracked on my name. "Please. I know I messed up. I know I said terrible things to you. But I'm not ready to die. I'm 20 years old. Please don't let me die." Tears were streaming down his face. Real tears. Not the manipulative kind I'd gotten used to seeing from my parents. Just raw terror from a boy who'd finally realized he wasn't invincible. "I'm sorry," he continued. "I'm so sorry for everything. For calling you spare parts. For drinking after you saved me. For taking everything you gave me for granted. If you do this again, I swear I'll be different. I'll never drink again. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I looked at my brother. At the yellow tint in his eyes. At the way his hands were shaking. At the fear in his face that mirrored the fear I'd felt 3 years ago when they first asked me to do this. And I felt something crack inside me. "I don't want to do this again," I whispered. "I know," Jordan said. "I know you don't. And you shouldn't have to. But I'm begging you, Angelica. I'm begging you to give me one more chance." Mom was crying. Dad was crying. Jordan was crying. Everyone in that room was crying except me. I'd run out of tears years ago. "If I do this," I said slowly, "and you start drinking again, I'm done. Forever. I will never speak to you again. I will never help you again. You will be dead to me. Do you understand?" Jordan nodded frantically. "I understand. I promise. Never again." I looked at my parents. "And you two have to actually hold him accountable this time. No more pretending you don't see it. No more blaming stress. If he so much as looks at a beer, you tell me." They nodded. They agreed to everything. They would have agreed to anything. 2 weeks later, I was back in the hospital. This time the surgery was longer, more complicated. The doctor said my liver had regenerated well, but the tissue was different now. More fibrous. Harder to work with. When I woke up, something was wrong. Pain that wasn't supposed to be there. Monitors beeping faster than they should. A nurse rushing to my bedside and calling for a doctor. "There's been a complication," the surgeon told my parents. I was still too foggy to understand what he was saying. Something about bleeding. Something about having to go back in. Something about touch and go for a few hours. I was in the ICU for 3 days. Mom stayed with me the whole time. At least that's what she told me later. Mostly I just remember the pain and the fog and the terror of not knowing if I was going to wake up each time I closed my eyes. When I was finally stable enough to move to a regular room, the surgeon came to talk to me alone. He waited until my parents went to the cafeteria. Then he pulled a chair up to my bedside and looked at me with eyes that were kind but serious. "Angelica, I need to tell you something important," he said. "Your liver regenerated after the first donation, but not perfectly. There's significant scarring. The tissue is compromised in ways that made this surgery much more dangerous than it should have been." I nodded. I already knew something was wrong. I could feel it. If you're ever asked to donate again, I need you to understand what that would mean. He paused like he was choosing his next words very carefully. A third donation would be extremely dangerous, potentially fatal. Your liver cannot sustain that kind of repeated trauma. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I understood. I understood perfectly. Don't let anyone pressure you into another donation, the surgeon continued. Not your parents, not your brother, not anyone. Your life would be at serious risk. Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. Can you write that down for me? Everything you just said? I want it on paper. He looked surprised but nodded. Of course. I can give you a copy of my medical notes as well. The documentation of the complications. The prognosis for any future procedures. I want all of it, I said. Everything. He came back an hour later with a folder. Inside was his written statement about the risks of a third surgery. His medical notes from my file. Documentation of every complication I'd experienced. He handed it to me like it was a lifeline. Because it was. When my parents came back from the cafeteria, I watched their faces carefully. They were smiling, relaxed, relieved that Jordan was recovering well in his own room down the hall. The doctor talked to me, I said, about the complications, about what a third surgery would mean. Mom's smile flickered for just a second. Let's not worry about that right now. Let's focus on getting you both healthy. He said it could kill me. He said it could be dangerous, Dad corrected. Medicine advances all the time. What's risky today might be routine in a few years. But if Jordan destroys this liver too, he won't, Mom said firmly. He promised. And we promised to hold him accountable. This conversation is pointless. She patted my hand. You're so brave, Angel. Your brother is so lucky to have you. Now get some rest. They didn't hear a word I said. They didn't care about the warning. They'd already decided that my life was an acceptable trade for Jordan's comfort. But this time I had proof. I had the doctor's warning in writing. I had my medical records. I had documentation that they couldn't dismiss or rewrite or pretend didn't exist. I just didn't know when I'd need to use it. Jordan was discharged a week before me. He came to my room before he left. He stood in the doorway looking healthy and strong while I lay in my hospital bed with tubes coming out of my arms. Thank you, he said. I mean it, Angelica. I'm going to be different this time. You better be. I will be, I promise. He left. I stayed in the hospital for 3 more weeks dealing with complications that shouldn't have happened. Infections, fluid buildup, pain that wouldn't go away. When I finally got discharged, I went home to discover that Jordan had thrown a party the weekend before. A big one. With alcohol. My parents said it was just his friends celebrating that he was okay. They said he didn't drink anything himself. They said I was being paranoid and ungrateful, and I needed to stop looking for reasons to be angry. I went to my room and locked the door, and didn't come out for 2 days. That night, I started keeping records. Every time I saw Jordan drink, I wrote it down. Dates, times, what he was drinking, how much. I took photos on my phone when he wasn't looking, screenshots of his social media posts at bars and parties. I saved the doctor's folder in a locked drawer where no one could find it. I collected evidence like a detective building a case because I knew this wasn't over. I knew they'd come for me again. And when they did, I was going to be ready. The doctor told me a third surgery could kill me. My parents nodded and changed the subject. They've already decided my life is an acceptable trade for Jordan's comfort. But this time, I'm not a scared 14-year-old with no power. I have the doctor's warning in writing. I have 4 years of evidence documenting every broken promise. I'm not going to wait for them to harvest me again. When this family comes for my body one more time, I'm going to burn the whole thing down, and they're going to watch. 4 more years passed. I turned 21. Jordan turned 24. In those 4 years, I did everything I could to build a life away from my family. I got into a state school on a partial scholarship and worked 2 jobs to cover the rest. I majored in accounting because it was practical, and because the idea of being financially independent from my parents felt like freedom. I kept my distance. I came home for Christmas and maybe one other holiday each year. I called my parents once a week and kept the conversations short. Jordan and I barely spoke. I didn't trust him and he knew it. Every time I saw him, I watched for signs. Bloodshot eyes, shaky hands, the smell of alcohol on his breath. Sometimes I found them. Sometimes I didn't. But I always looked. And I always documented. 4 years of evidence saved in a folder on my laptop and backed up to 3 different places. Photos, screenshots, dates, and times. A timeline of every broken promise my brother had made while my parents looked the other way. The doctor's warning from the hospital, now laminated and stored in a fireproof safe I bought with my own money. I knew exactly what I was building. I just needed the right moment to use it. My parents had told the extended family a completely different story than what I'd lived through. According to them, Jordan had one health scare 7 years ago and recovered beautifully. One surgery, one donation, one miraculous recovery. They never mentioned the second surgery, never mentioned the complications, never mentioned that their daughter almost died on an operating table at 17. They rewrote history, and I was the only one who knew the truth. But I was done being the only one. Then the invitation came. Jordan's 24th birthday party. A big celebration at my parents' house. The whole extended family would be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins I hadn't seen in years. Jordan's new girlfriend would be there too. Lindsay. He'd been dating her for 6 months, and according to my mother, she was the one. She came from money. She had a good job. She thought Jordan was perfect. She had no idea who she was really dating. Everyone gathering to celebrate the miracle child who'd survived one liver failure. My first instinct was to say no. I had finals coming up. I had work. I had 100 excuses ready. But then I saw the guest list and realized something. Every person my parents had lied to would be in one room. My grandparents who'd given me a college fund that got stolen. My aunts and uncles who'd been told the sanitized version of events. My Aunt Marcy, the surgeon who'd been working overseas for 5 years and had no idea there had been a second surgery at all. And Lindsay, Jordan's girlfriend, who thought she was dating a responsible adult instead of an addict who'd almost killed his sister twice. This was my moment. This was the audience I'd been waiting for. I called my Aunt Marcy 2 weeks before the party. "Angelica, is everything okay? I need to ask you something," I said. "How much do you know about Jordan's liver problems?" Silence on the other end. "I know he had a health scare when he was 17, Marcy said slowly. "Your mother said you donated liver tissue to save him. She said it was a one-time thing and everyone recovered beautifully. That's not the whole story. There was a second surgery when I was 17. The complications almost killed me. And the doctor told me a third donation would be fatal. I have it in writing." "What?" "Mom and Dad have been lying to everyone for 7 years. I have proof. Medical records, photos, a timeline of every time Jordan's been drinking. Everything." Marcy was quiet for a long moment. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I'm done being the family secret. At Jordan's birthday party, I'm going to show everyone the truth. I'm going to show them the scars. I'm going to show them the evidence. And I'm going to make sure everyone in that room knows exactly what Mom and Dad have been hiding. Angelica, that's going to cause a huge scene." "Good. I want a huge scene. I want everyone to see." Another pause. Then Marcy's voice came back different. Harder. "What do you need from me?" "I need you to be there. I need a surgeon in the room who can confirm what I'm saying is medically accurate. I need someone with authority to back me up when Mom and Dad try to minimize everything." "I'll be there," Marcy said. "But Angelica, you're the one who has to do this. You're the one who has to stand up and tell them. I can confirm facts, but this is your story. You have to be the one to tell it." "I know," I said. "I've been waiting 7 years to tell it." We made a plan. The party was on a Saturday in late April. I drove up the night before and stayed in my childhood bedroom that still had posters of Olympic swimmers on the walls, remnants of a dream that died on an operating table 7 years ago. I barely slept. I went over everything in my head. The folder with all my evidence, already in my car. The photos on my phone, organized by date. The laminated copy of the doctor's warning in my purse. The speech I'd been rehearsing for weeks. This time, I was in control. The morning of the party, I helped my mom set up decorations, balloons, streamers, a giant banner that said, "Happy 24th birthday, Jordan." She chattered about the caterer and the playlist and how excited everyone was to see Jordan doing so well. "He's really turned his life around," she said while arranging flowers. "He's been so responsible, so mature. I'm so proud of him." I nodded and kept hanging streamers. I thought about the photos on my phone from last month. Jordan at a bar with his friends. Jordan doing shots at a club. Jordan so drunk he could barely stand. Responsible, mature, right. "He's been talking about proposing to Lindsay," Mom continued. "Can you imagine? Jordan getting married. She's such a lovely girl. Comes from a good family. They're going to have beautiful children." I thought about Lindsay. About how she had no idea what she was getting into. About how my parents had probably already told her the one surgery version of events. About how she'd find out the truth tonight along with everyone else. "That's great, Mom," I said. "I'm happy for him." Guests started arriving around 3. Aunts and uncles I barely recognized. Cousins who'd grown up since I last saw them. And Lindsay, Jordan's girlfriend, looking perfect in a yellow sundress with a smile that said she thought she'd won the lottery with my brother. Everyone hugging and laughing and telling stories about Jordan, the golden child, the miracle boy, the one who'd survived against all odds. Nobody mentioned how he survived. Nobody mentioned the 2 surgeries. Nobody mentioned me. I drifted to the corner of the living room and stayed there. Marcy arrived around 4. She hugged my parents, made small talk with the relatives, and eventually made her way over to me. "You okay?" she asked quietly. I'm ready. When? During Dad's toast. He always makes a big speech about how proud he is of Jordan. That's when I do it. Marcy nodded. I'll be right here. I watched Jordan work the room. He was good at this, charming everyone, making them laugh. Lindsay was glued to his side, looking at him like he was some kind of hero, accepting compliments and congratulations like he deserved them, like he'd done something impressive just by staying alive. He was also drinking. Not beer, whiskey. Glass after glass from the bar my parents had set up in the corner. I watched him refill his drink 3 times in the first hour. Nobody else seemed to notice. Or maybe they noticed and didn't care. I pulled out my phone and took a photo. Discreetly. Just another piece of evidence. One more nail in the coffin. When his glass was empty again, he caught my eye across the room and smiled. Raised his glass in a mock toast. Mouthed the words, "Cheers, sis." Then he turned back to Lindsay and laughed at something she said. My father clinked his glass with a fork. The room went quiet. This was it. If I could have everyone's attention, Dad said with a big smile, I'd like to make a toast to the man of the hour. My son. My miracle. He launched into his speech. The same speech he gave every year. How proud he was of Jordan. How much Jordan had overcome. How the whole family had rallied around him during his health scare 7 years ago. We almost lost him, Dad said, his voice cracking with rehearsed emotion. But thanks to modern medicine and the love of this family, he pulled through. And look at him now. Healthy. Happy. About to start a beautiful life with this lovely young woman. He gestured at Lindsay, who blushed and squeezed Jordan's arm. So raise your glasses to Jordan. My son. My hero. The strongest person I know. I stepped forward. I have something to add. The room went quiet. Every head turned toward me. Dad's smile froze on his face. Angelica, Mom said sharply. Not now. Yes, now. I walked to the center of the room. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. Dad forgot to mention something in his toast. He forgot to mention that Jordan didn't pull through because of modern medicine. He pulled through because of me. I looked around at all the confused faces. At my grandparents. At my aunts and uncles. At Lindsay, who was staring at me with wide eyes. I donated part of my liver to save Jordan when I was 14 years old. Dad mentioned that. What he didn't mention is that I did it again when I was 17. 2 surgeries. 2 donations. 2 pieces of my body that I gave my brother so he could live. Murmurs rippled through the room. My grandmother put her hand over her heart. 2 surgeries? Uncle Robert asked. We only heard about 1. That's because Mom and Dad lied to you. Jordan stepped forward. His face was flushed from the whiskey, but his voice was steady. Controlled. The charm was still there. Just turned in a different direction now. Okay, hold on. He held up his hands like he was calming a crowd. Let's not blow this out of proportion. Yes, there were 2 surgeries, but the second one was minor. A small complication from the first procedure. It wasn't some big dramatic thing. He looked around the room with a practiced smile. My sister has always been a little dramatic. You all know how she gets. Remember when she used to cry about missing swim practice? Same energy. A few relatives chuckled nervously. I could see them wanting to believe him, wanting this to be a misunderstanding instead of a catastrophe. Show them then. I lifted my shirt. Not all the way. Just enough to show the scars. 2 of them. Running across my abdomen in parallel lines that no minor procedure would ever leave. The room went silent. Does that look minor to you? I turned slowly so everyone could see. My grandmother gasped. Uncle Robert's wife covered her mouth. Lindsay's face went pale. Jordan's smile flickered. Scars always look worse than they are. The doctors said she healed perfectly. The doctor said I almost died. I let my shirt fall back down. I was in the ICU for 3 days. I had infections for months afterward. And the surgeon told me that if I ever donated again, it would kill me. That's an exaggeration, Jordan said quickly. Medicine advances all the time. What was risky then might be routine now. She's being dramatic to get attention. I pulled out my phone and walked over to my grandmother. I showed her the photo I'd taken at the hospital when I was 17. The one of me in the ICU with tubes coming out of my arms. This is what dramatic looks like, apparently. I handed her my phone. Scroll through. There's more. She scrolled. Her face went white. She passed the phone to my grandfather. He looked at the photos and then looked at my parents with an expression I'd never seen before. Disgust. You told us it was 1 surgery, he said to my father. You told us she was fine. She was fine, Dad started. She recovered. I was in the ICU for 3 days. I cut him off. I had infections that lasted for months. I still have pain where the scars are. And the whole time I was recovering, Jordan was back to drinking. He threw a party the week I got out of the hospital. Jordan laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, here we go. Now I'm the villain because I had some friends over? Because I tried to move on with my life instead of wallowing? You almost killed me and then you threw a party. I didn't almost kill you. A medical complication almost killed you. There's a difference. A complication from the surgery I had to save your life. A surgery you agreed to. Nobody forced you. You could have said no. The words hung in the air. I felt something cold settle in my chest because he actually believed that. He actually believed I'd had a choice. I was 17 years old. Mom told me I'd never be welcome in this family again if I refused. What choice did I have? There's always a choice, Jordan said. You made yours. Don't blame me because you regret it now. Lindsay stepped forward. Her face was confused, trying to piece together what she was hearing. Jordan, you told me you had one surgery. Years ago. You said it was a wake-up call and you changed everything. I did change. Jordan turned to her with that charming smile. Baby, you know me. You've seen how I live. I'm healthy. I'm responsible. This is just family drama. My sister's always been jealous of the attention I got growing up. Jealous? I stared at him. You think I'm jealous? Why else would you do this? Ruin my birthday party? Embarrass me in front of everyone? You've always resented that Mom and Dad cared about me more. This is just payback. I pulled up another photo on my phone. Jordan at a bar 2 weeks ago doing shots with his friends. This is from 3 weeks ago. I swiped to the next one. This is from last month. Swiped again. This is from Valentine's Day. You were so drunk you could barely stand. I walked over to Lindsay and showed her the screen. I have 4 years of photos. Dates, times, locations. Every time I saw him drinking, I documented it. This is the man you think changed. Lindsay stared at the photos. Her hands were shaking. Jordan. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Tell me she's lying. He didn't answer. Jordan, look at me. Tell me these photos are fake. They're out of context, he said, but his voice had lost its charm. It was thin now, desperate. Those were special occasions. I wasn't really drinking. It was social. Everyone does it. You told me you didn't drink at all. You told me you learned your lesson. You told me your sister donated once and you never touched alcohol again. I didn't think it mattered. It's not like I'm an alcoholic. I can stop whenever I want. Then why didn't you? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. It's complicated. Lindsay's face changed. I watched the love drain out of it, watched it get replaced by something cold and final. You lied to me. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. You told me you were sober. You told me your sister saved your life once and you were so grateful you never risked it again. That's not telling me everything. That's a lie. A specific, deliberate lie. Lindsay, please. Jordan reached for her hand. She pulled away. You're overreacting. This is my family being dramatic. You know how families are. I know how honest people are. And this isn't it. She turned to me. Her eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. How bad is it? Really? His liver is already showing damage again. My parents have been hinting that I should be ready for another surgery. A surgery that my doctor said would kill me. Lindsay looked at Jordan. Really looked at him. Like she was seeing him for the first time. You were going to let your sister die so you could keep drinking. That's not... I would never... Were you ever going to tell me the truth? About any of it? Jordan's face crumpled. The charm was gone now. The confidence was gone. He looked like what he actually was. A scared boy who'd been coddled his whole life and never learned how to face consequences. I was going to tell you eventually. I just wanted you to love me first. I wanted you to see who I really am before all this stuff got in the way. This stuff is who you really are, Jordan. This is exactly who you are. Lindsay took off the bracelet she was wearing, a gold bangle that I'd seen Jordan give her last Christmas. She set it on the table next to the cake. I'm done. Lindsay, wait, please. I love you. You don't love anyone. You just use people until they're empty and then you find someone new to drain. She looked at me. I'm sorry for what you've been through. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Then she walked out. Jordan started to follow her, but I stepped in front of him. Let her go. Move. No. I said move. He grabbed my arm, hard enough to hurt. Marcy was there in a second. Take your hands off her. Jordan let go. He looked around the room wildly, searching for someone to take his side. His friends who'd been celebrating with him earlier were edging toward the door. Our cousins wouldn't meet his eyes. Even Mom and Dad stood frozen, not moving to defend him. This isn't fair, he said. His voice cracked. I made mistakes, but I'm trying. I'm getting better. You can't just ruin my life because you're angry. You ruined my life 7 years ago. You called me spare parts. You said Mom and Dad only had me so I could save you. You treated my body like a supply closet you could raid whenever you needed something. I was young. I was stupid. People change. You haven't changed. You're still drinking. You're still lying. The only thing that's changed is that now everyone knows. I reached into my purse and pulled out the laminated document. The doctor's warning from 7 years ago. This is a letter from my surgeon after the second donation. It says that a third surgery would be extremely dangerous, potentially fatal. My liver cannot sustain that kind of repeated trauma. I walked over to my parents and held it up in front of their faces. You read this letter. The doctor gave you a copy. You knew that asking me to donate again would kill me. And last month, when Jordan told you his liver was starting to fail again, what did you do? Mom's face went gray. You started hinting that I should be there for him. You started talking about how family means sacrifice. You started laying the groundwork to ask me to die so Jordan could keep drinking. That's not what we were doing, Dad said weakly. Yes, it was. I'm not stupid. I've watched you do this twice already. I know exactly how you operate. I looked at my grandmother, at the woman who'd given me a college fund that my parents had stolen. They took the money you gave me for college. Did you know that? They used my college fund to pay Jordan's medical bills. They kept his fund intact while they emptied mine. Grandma's face went hard. You took her money? We had to make difficult choices, Mom said. The bills were... Jordan's fund was twice the size of hers, Grandma said. I know because I set them both up. You could have split it. You could have asked us for help. Instead, you took everything from your daughter and gave it to your son. She stood up. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was strong. I've heard enough. She walked over to me and put her hands on my face. I'm so sorry, Angelica. I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening. It's not your fault, Grandma. They lied to everyone. She turned to face my parents. You will never see another penny from me. Either of you. That money I was going to leave you in my will? It's going to Angelica now. All of it. Mom, be reasonable, Dad started. I am being reasonable. I'm being more reasonable than you deserve. She looked at Jordan, who was standing alone in the middle of the room. Lindsay was gone. His friends had slipped out while no one was watching. Everyone who'd been celebrating him 10 minutes ago was now looking at him like a stranger. And you, Grandma said. You had 2 chances. 2. Your sister gave you 2 pieces of her body, and you thanked her by drinking yourself back to death. If your liver fails again, you'll wait on the list like everyone else. And maybe while you're waiting, you'll finally learn what it feels like to not have someone sacrifice everything to save you. Jordan made one last desperate attempt. He turned to our parents with tears streaming down his face. Mom, Dad, tell them this isn't true. Tell them Angelica's exaggerating. Tell them I'm not as bad as she's making me sound. Mom looked at him, then at me, then at the floor. She didn't say anything. Dad? Dad's mouth opened and closed. Nothing came out. Jordan stood there in the silence, waiting for his parents to save him the way they always had, waiting for someone to take his side, to make excuses for him, to sacrifice something so he didn't have to face consequences. No one moved. You're really going to let her do this? His voice was high and thin. You're going to let her destroy our family? I'm not destroying anything, I said. I'm just finally telling the truth. I walked toward the door. Marcy followed me. Wait. Jordan's voice was desperate now. Angelica, please. What if my liver fails again? What if I need... Then you'll die. I stopped at the door and looked back at him. Or you'll wait on the transplant list like everyone else who needs an organ. You'll wait months or years while your body shuts down. You'll learn what it feels like to be powerless, to be dependent on someone else's mercy. I looked at my parents. And you'll learn what it feels like to watch your child suffer and not be able to sacrifice someone else to fix it. Mom was crying. Dad was staring at the floor. Jordan was standing alone in the middle of the room, surrounded by relatives who wouldn't meet his eyes, abandoned by the girlfriend who'd finally seen who he really was. Goodbye, I said. And I walked out. Jordan's liver failed 3 months later. He's still on the transplant list. Lindsay never came back. His friends stopped calling. My grandparents cut off my parents completely. I live with Aunt Marcy now and haven't seen my family since that night. For the first time in my life, my body belongs only to me.